Your support matters, with 90% of our viewers yet to subscribe. We need your help to keep creating engaging content. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Let us know where you are watching from. Leave your city in the comment below. In the picturesque town of Maplewood, where autumn leaves danced in the crisp breeze and the golden hour cast a warm glow on cobblestone streets, lived a woman named Clara. She was the kind of person who made the world softer. Her laughter carried a melody, her touch brought comfort, and her presence alone could turn an ordinary house into a home. She found joy in small things. The rich scent of fresh basil from her garden, the sizzle of garlic hitting a hot pan, the quiet rustle of pages turning as she lost herself in a book. Yet, despite the warmth she poured into the world, Clara felt a cold emptiness growing inside her. Her marriage to Mark had been a beautiful thing once built on whispered dreams and endless conversations beneath the stars. But somewhere between paying bills and planning weekly grocery lists, their love had settled into a predictable rhythm, like a once-beloved song played too many times. Mark, a dedicated software engineer, spent long hours lost in lines of code, his mind tethered to an endless stream of projects. And though he loved her in his own quiet way, Clara couldn't remember the last time he truly saw her. She never thought about what she was missing, until Alex walked back into her life. It was a late summer evening, and their backyard was alive with the sounds of laughter and sizzling barbecue. Friends gathered, conversations weaved through the air, and for a while Clara felt the warmth of company filling the void inside her. Then, amidst the glow of string lights and the hum of conversation, she heard a voice from the past. "Clara Bennett," Alex called out, a familiar smirk playing on his lips. She turned, and for a moment time rewound. Alex had been Mark's college friend, a free spirit with a contagious zest for life. They had all been close once, but life, as it often does, had scattered them in different directions. Now here he was again, effortlessly slipping into the space where something in Clara had been quietly aching. "Alex Carter," she said, unable to hide the smile tugging at her lips. Alex had changed in the years since they had last seen each other, yet in some ways he was exactly the same. He had always been a man who lived in the moment, unafraid to chase passion wherever it led. His business in sustainable architecture had taken him around the world, but returning to Maplewood had stirred old emotions. He had always admired Clara, her warmth, her depth, her way of making everything feel like home. As the night unfolded, they laughed about reckless college road trips, debated over old movies, and found themselves lost in conversations that felt effortless. When was the last time someone had looked at her the way Alex did? Like she was something bright, something worth getting lost in. For the first time in years, Clara felt awake. At first, it was innocent. A chance run-in at the local cafe. A shared project in the community. Quick, harmless conversations. But the stolen moments turned into lingering ones. The accidental meetings became intentional. Alex hadn't come back to Maplewood expecting to stir up the past, but Clara had always been different. He saw the weariness in her eyes, the way she hesitated before answering simple questions about her happiness. He wanted to remind her of who she had been before the weight of responsibility dulled her spirit. Alex hadn't planned to run into Clara at the cafe that morning. But when he saw her sitting by the window, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug, he couldn't help but approach. She looked up, startled, then smiled. A smile that still had the power to make his chest tighten. "Alex," she said, her voice warm but tinged with something he couldn't quite place. Loneliness, maybe. They talked about nothing and everything. The weather, the new bookstore in town, the old memories they both seemed to tiptoe around. As he walked away, Alex couldn't shake the image of her face, the way her eyes had lit up when he made her laugh. It was a dangerous thought, but it lingered. What if I could make her happy again? Sound of footsteps fading, replaced by the rustle of leaves in a park. The next time they met, it was at Maplewood Park. Clara was sitting on a bench, a book in her lap, though she wasn't reading. She looked lost in thought, her fingers tracing the edge of the page. Alex sat beside her, and they talked for hours. About the past, about the dreams they'd once had, about the lives they were living now. But as the sun dipped below the trees, Alex felt a pang of guilt. He knew he was treading on dangerous ground. "She's married," he reminded himself. "To Mark. Your friend." But the more time he spent with Clara, the harder it became to ignore the pull of what they'd once shared. The late-night conversations, the stolen kisses, the way she had looked at him like he was the only person in the world. He tried to push the memories away, but they came flooding back, vivid and intoxicating. The way her skin had felt under his hands, the sound of her laughter, the way she had whispered his name in the dark. Stop, he told himself. This isn't who you are. But the truth was, he didn't know who he was anymore. He had spent so long running from commitment, from responsibility, that he had become a stranger to himself. And Clara made him feel like he was someone worth being. Alex thinking, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be thinking about her like this. But God, I can't help it. Every time I see her, it's like I'm back in college, back when everything was simple. Back when she was mine. I remember the way she used to look at me like I was the only thing that mattered. I remember the way she felt in my arms, the way she kissed me like she was trying to memorize me. And now she's here, but she's not mine. She's his. But does she have to be? No. Stop. That's not fair. She's not a prize to be won. She's a person who's hurting. And I just want to make her happy. But is that really all it is? Or am I just trying to fill the emptiness inside me? I don't know. I don't know anymore. The next time they met, it was at a community event. Clara was helping organize a fundraiser, and Alex had volunteered to help. They worked side by side, their hands brushing occasionally, their laughter mingling with the chatter of the crowd. But as the night wore on, Alex found himself stealing glances at her, his heart racing every time she smiled at him. This is wrong, he thought. I need to stop. But when she turned to him, her eyes bright with excitement, he couldn't bring himself to walk away. Alex, she said, her voice soft. Thank you for being here. And just like that, he was lost. Sound of footsteps on a quiet trail. Alex's voice is hesitant, vulnerable. Clara, I need to tell you something. I didn't come back to Maplewood expecting this. I didn't come back expecting you. But now that I'm here, now that I've seen you again, I can't pretend I don't feel something. I know this is wrong. I know you're married. I know Mark is my friend. But I can't help the way I feel. And I think you feel it too. Softly. Alex. Pleading. I'm not saying we have to do anything. I'm just saying. I'm here. If you need me. If you want me. Pause. The sound of wind rustling through trees. For a moment, Clara didn't speak. She just looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of longing and guilt. And then, without a word, she turned and walked away. Alex watched her go, his heart heavy with regret. What have I done? But even as the guilt settled in his chest, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had done the right thing. For the first time in years, he felt alive. And he knew deep down that Clara felt it too. Sound of a quiet room. Alex's voice is reflective, resigned. Thinking, I should leave. I should pack my bags and go, before I make things worse. But I can't. Not yet. Not until I know she's okay. Not until I know I haven't completely destroyed her. God, what am I doing? I'm not the hero in this story. I'm the villain. But maybe I can be both. Maybe I can be the one who saves her, even if it means losing her forever. Or maybe I'm just fooling myself. I don't know. All I know is I can't walk away. Not yet. Mark was perceptive. He always had been. He noticed the shifts, the way Clara would smile to herself after reading a message, the way she seemed lost in thought even when he was right beside her. He thought it was work stress at first, maybe the change of seasons pulling her into a quiet melancholy. Then, one evening, as Clara chopped vegetables in the kitchen, she felt his presence before he even spoke. Everything okay? Mark asked, his voice warm yet searching. She forced a smile. Just a long day. Mark nodded, but the silence that followed was thick with words neither of them spoke. A week later, he surprised her with a trip to the lake, a place that had once been their sanctuary, but forever felt fragile now. That night, as they sat on their bed, the weight of unspoken words pressing between them, she took a trembling breath. Mark, we need to talk. The way he looked at her made her chest tighten, because she knew she was about to break his heart. The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet. Sound of a quiet room, the faint hum of a clock ticking. Clara's voice is shaky, barely above a whisper. Mark, I've been spending time with Alex. Still, voice low. What do you mean, spending time? Tearfully, Clara said, it started as just talking. But I developed feelings for him. Voice cracking. Clara, how could you? Pleading. I never meant for this to happen. I was lonely and he made me feel. Angrily. Made you feel what? Like I don't love you? Like everything we built doesn't mean anything. Whispering, it does, Mark. It does. But I lost myself somewhere along the way, and I don't know how to find my way back. Clara's voice is reflective, filled with guilt and confusion. The days that followed were a blur. Mark moved to the guest room, and the house felt like a tomb, silent and cold. Clara couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the hurt in Mark's face, the way his hands had trembled as he walked out of the room. She told herself she had done the right thing by being honest. But the guilt was a constant ache, a weight she couldn't shake. And then there was Alex. He called, texted, showed up at her door with that same easy smile, the one that made her feel like she was the only person in the world. "Clara," he said, his voice soft, "you don't have to do this alone." And for a moment, she almost believed him. Sound of rain intensifying. Clara's voice is conflicted, torn. One evening, after another sleepless night, Clara found herself at Alex's apartment. She told herself it was just to talk, to clear her head. But when he opened the door, his hair damp from the rain, his eyes filled with concern, she felt something shift. They sat on the couch, the space between them charged with unspoken tension. "Clara," he said, his voice low, "you don't have to keep punishing yourself." She looked at him, her heart racing. "I don't know what I'm doing, Alex." "Then let me help you," he said, reaching for her hand. For a moment, she let him. His touch was warm, familiar, and it stirred something in her, something she had tried so hard to ignore. But as he leaned in, his breath warm against her skin, she froze. "This isn't me," she thought. "This isn't who I want to be." She pulled away, her hands trembling. "I can't do this," she whispered. Alex looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of hurt and understanding. "Clara," he said, his voice soft, "you deserve to be happy." "I know," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But this isn't the way." The next day, Clara met Alex at the park. The air was crisp, the leaves crunching under their feet as they walked in silence. Finally, Clara stopped and turned to him. "Alex," she said, her voice steady, "I can't see you anymore." He looked at her, his eyes searching hers. "Clara." "No," she interrupted. This isn't right. I hurt Mark. I hurt us. And I can't keep hurting people to try to fix myself." Alex nodded, though his eyes were filled with regret. "I understand," he said. "But Clara, you deserve to be happy. Don't forget that." She smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I won't." As she walked away, she felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. She had lost Mark. She had lost Alex. But for the first time in a long time, she felt like she had found herself. The days that followed were hard. Mark was distant, and the house felt emptier than ever. But Clara was determined to rebuild, not just her marriage, but herself. She started therapy. She reconnected with old friends. She spent hours in her garden, her hands in the soil, her mind quiet for the first time in years. And slowly, piece by piece, she began to heal. One evening, as she sat on the porch, watching the sun set over Maplewood, Mark joined her. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. But as he reached for her hand, she felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't much, but it was enough. For now, Clara ended things with Alex, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. She had been searching for something in him that she needed to find within herself. Mark, though wounded, wasn't ready to walk away. Yet, he battled between anger and grief, questioning whether their love had truly faded or if they had just lost sight of it. Therapy sessions forced them to confront the ways they had both failed each other. Mark realized how often he had retreated into his work, assuming Clara would always be there. Clara recognized that instead of voicing her loneliness, she had sought solace elsewhere. Some days were filled with painful honesty, others with tentative hope. One evening, as they sat on the couch, Mark reached for her hand. It was a small gesture, but it held a world of meaning. "I've seen you fight for us, Clara," he said, his voice softer now. "And I want to fight for us too." Tears welled in her eyes. "I want to rediscover us, Mark. To find the joy we lost." He squeezed her hand. "Then let's do it. Together." As they leaned into each other, the road ahead still uncertain, one thing was clear. Love wasn't just about the past. It was about the choice to keep showing up, to keep trying, even when it hurt. And for the first time in a long time, Clara felt hope.